When we decided to start the company, neither one of us was independently wealthy or had any backing or anything. We just worked out of the spare bedroom of our apartment. Of course, at the time, we tried to hide that fact from the world because we didn't want everybody to know exactly how small we were. But we had $400 to start this company with, and that was in 1974. We chose the name JAM because it's made up of the initials J-A-M, John and Mary Lyn. The first actual package that we did was called Dimension 2. Of course, I can tell you now there was never any Dimension 1, but we called it Dimension 2 really because there were two facets to the package. We were dealing with short cuts and longer image cuts, so we thought we'd call it that, but it also made it sound like we were on to our second one already, so that seemed to work. Well, without question, one of the highlights, the personal high moments in this entire venture here was the day that we got WABC New York as a client. This is the radio station that I had grown up listening to all through the 60s, and just the neatest thing that could possibly happen was to make the transition from being the guy in high school who would go up to WABC to visit Cousin Brucey and try to bring home copies of the jingles, to make the transition and become the guy who went to WABC to give them the jingles, and that is what happened. The interesting part to the story of getting WABC was that we weren't even trying to get it. I had sent a demo of some of our first work to Rick Sklar, because I'd known him for several years and I just wanted him to know what we were up to and where we were. And I didn't expect to hear back from him. Well, it was a Friday afternoon at 5:30, which meant it was 6:30 in New York. And the phone rang and Mary Lyn answered it, and the guy on the other end said, "Hi, this is Rick Sklar," and she didn't believe it. But she passed the phone over to me, and I, of course, recognized Rick's voice immediately and knew that this was the real deal. So I said, "Yeah, hello." And we had a nice chat, and he told me that he was having a hard time finding somebody to make the kind of jingles that he wanted. So he said, "Listen, why don't you, here's some cuts we need, and why don't you do them and send them up, and if you like them, we'll go from there." So, of course, we dropped everything. Did them as best we could, sent them up there, and in October of '75, they went on the radio. And we've been doing jingles for WABC ever since. One of the things that makes JAM unique is that we do jingles on purpose. And what I mean by that is, it's not a sideline, it's not something we fell into doing because we thought we could make a buck doing it. It's what we always were set up to do, and we enjoy doing it, and that's one of the reasons I think that we've been able to be here this long, is because we spend all of our time thinking about doing this. I have to share a lot of the credit for the success of JAM with all of the people who are part of JAM, and I'm talking about the staff here, our writers and arrangers and engineers and so forth, and all of the support people, as well as the singers and the musicians that we use. You can't do this by yourself. You need the creative input from a lot of people to come up with a product. And if anyone is kind enough to think that our stuff is good or better than most, it's because we have put together the best team of people to do that. We have a plaque that's on the wall in our entryway here. It's a Latin phrase that says "Tempus consumit res creari," and the translation of that is, "It takes time to make things." Every question that is asked around here can be answered by that phrase. It takes time to make things. I guess the biggest change that we've seen over 20 years in terms of how jingles are used is their use is a little more formatted, they're a little more controlled by the program director. The content of the jingles is more concise now. The lyrics are more limited to specific messages and thoughts rather than just being a potpourri of ways to get the call letters across. But they are still effective. I mean, singing the name of the radio station is still more memorable than having a guy say it. We've done some interesting things. During Desert Storm a few years ago, Armed Forces Radio had set up a network out there in the desert just to get news and some entertainment to the troops that were out there. And they had us do some jingles for that, my favorite of which was "Keep Your Head Down and the Volume Up." We also do a lot of jingles for stations in Japan, and it surprises people when I tell them that they're in English. It's just that the sequence of words that they choose is a little comical to us. They're probably literal translations of things that make perfect sense in Japanese, but we get to sing things like all-female radio on the humorous boat 82.5 FM. Okay, fine, you know. It's hard to say what the most interesting or the strangest or the funniest thing we've ever done is, because every day there's something weird. We're asked to sing things that, you know, long ago we stopped deciding it was weird.
1, 2.
The radio-only convention at Scattercon.
Scattercon?
I don't understand it, but I like it. Turned up nice.